and welcome to the last hit. As you can see, we've got a bit of a change of cast here today as we enter our episode for week number 8. It is, I don't know what day it is. Is it Tuesday?
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
Week number 8 is finished, is the key thing. It's past Sunday, and that's all I needed to know. And we're going to wrap things up for week 8 as we head into week 9 of the LPL, the final week before playoffs. I'm joined by Aux. I'm joined by Dagda, Dagda, mate, you used to be one of the regulars on this show before I was one of the regulars on this show. How does it feel to be back?
Yeah, it's good to be back. I mean, I kind of missed doing the podcast a little bit, because obviously I did it with Hysterics in 2020, that we took over with yourself, and then I kind of moved on to doing some of the voiceover stuff. So it's nice to be back. Yeah.
Although to be fair, we've done our fair share of podcasting in the meantime anyway. So, and
I think all of us have. Yeah.
Aux, I know you've been doing some ERL based podcasting, but also this is your second episode of the split on the last hit. So
I'm surprised, honestly, that you brought me back. I thought after the comment about reporting you for the grievances might have pushed me away, but apparently you don't care.
I asked everyone I knew. I asked around absolutely everybody. We were really scraping the bottom of the barrel for this episode.
I figured. I'm surprised you didn't just have like a blank space here. Maybe just left at that. But I appreciate that you eventually got to me as an option.
Just like an LFC looking for caster or something. Yeah. But no, welcome. I am, of course, joking. Thank you guys for joining me today. And let's kick straight into it. Let's just jump into failures and faves. And, you know, I'm kind of tossing a coin in my head on who I'll let go first. But Dagda, since you're the veteran here, I want to give you the floor. We start with the failures as always, because we'll get the negative out of the way, then we'll go into the positive to resolve things. So who is your failure for week 8?
So my failure for week 8 is going to be JDG, because it's looking highly, highly likely that JDG are not going to make it into finals. Yeah. These guys were our spring split champions in 2020. Summer finalists in summer 2020, world's representative at the semifinals, and then summer 2021 happened, and they don't even look like the same team. Like, one of the big things that we used to praise these guys for, like, really creative map play, being able to like play super well in these team fights with like really, really good engages coming through from Zoom and Lumao. I haven't seen Lumao. Like, every time I watch their games, it's just like, cool, he's there. Like, he's hit a couple of spells, but we never get that creative play that we used to get. Like, some of the really cool bar plays. We had picks where he's like taking the set. He'd like flash over a wall that he's managed to like secret agent his way around and make these cool spots. And we just don't have it anymore. And it's heartbreaking to see, because pretty much the entire squad seems to have taken a step down. And the only person that I kind of leave out of that equation is Zoom, because it just feels like if Zoom's fine, JDG are fine. And if not, the entire team goes apart.
Yeah, I think Zoom is the big one for me, that it feels like he's just nowhere near the same form as he was last year. And I tweeted about this the other day, that I can't believe Top Esports and JDG are the last two teams in contention. One of them won't make it to playoffs. They literally played all 10 available finals games last year. All 10. Both series went to 5 games. They each won a trophy. And now, just a year later, one of them isn't even going to make top 10. Like, it's top 10. It's not even the top 50% of the league. It's even more than 50% make it into playoffs. It's just mind-blowing to me. And yeah, I definitely agree that, I mean, at this point, the odds of JDG making it in are so astronomically low, because they need a bunch of other teams to mess it up to be able to make it in. It is all but done so for JDG, I'm afraid, I think.
And like one game, I think, is all the Top Esports need, because then essentially they can't catch them. So, like, not even a series. I think it's a game and they're out.
Yeah, and Top Esports still have 2 games to go. They basically need Top Esports to lose just a whole bunch to be able to take it. So we'll see. But yeah, I definitely agree. JDG, I don't know. The magic's gone. Maybe next year. Yeah. I still don't know what happened to Mystic. I believe there was like travel issues or something. But man, I really wish we could have seen what this team would have looked like. But who knows? Different conversation, isn't it? Aux, over to you for your failure, sir.
My failures, on a similar vein, is Top Esports. Obviously, chances are they are looking very likely to make it into playoffs, but I think when you look at this roster and you look at the fact that Knight has been on the biggest 1v9 mission, I think, ever, that we've seen, at least for a long time. I can't compare this to anything other than, remember Season 4 when Faker didn't make Worlds? That is like the biggest comparison that I can draw to this. And they still haven't lost playoffs at this point.
When Rookie didn't make Worlds, honestly.
Well, that too as well, you know.
I was going to say, like, we kind of joke about Rookie of the split. I think the Rookie from like is actually Knight just because he's getting the Rookie treatment where he's just going to hard carry the team this entire time.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off, Fox. Please.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of mind-blowing that he's on such a 1v9 mission. They still haven't locked playoffs. And just the fact that even in this last week against Ultra Prime, losing that series when that would have obviously been able to secure them playoffs as well. And it felt like they were constantly skill checking. It felt like somehow they're getting outpaced in the side lanes. It feels like there's a numbers advantage consistently for Ultra Prime. It felt like Carcer was invisible compared to Hacker for a lot of it, which is just so many failures in this roster. And I literally think without Knight, they would be, you know, below IG, honestly. They're being dragged over the line, and I don't think it has good omens for them in playoffs. You know, I think Knight's doing what he can, but I think the current meta isn't just like a 1v9 mid-meta.
I will say, I do think top esports are just top esports, though. Like, with Joel back, with 369 back, like, the 2-1 to up, did I expect it? No. Should anyone have expected it? Not really. But am I surprised by it? Also not really. This is top esports we're talking about. They can beat the very best teams in the world. They can also lose to the very worst teams in the world. So for me, it's like, I think they will scrape by into playoffs, and I think that they're going to absolutely decimate some other teams in the lower side of the bracket, or not the lower bracket, you know what I mean? The early rounds of playoffs. Top esports is going to crush some dreams. I still believe that this team is going to just level up for playoffs. But here's the thing, right? I don't think it's leveling up. I think it's just the ridiculousness of this team. They need to just end some games. It's in their blood, I guess.
I don't know what's happening to Jackie Love, man. Like, whatever about the rest of the team.
He doesn't like winning.
Jackie Love. I'm like, okay, you pick Ezreal. Save champion. No way anything can go wrong. 0-3 by the 8-minute mark. I'm like, how? The champion is designed to literally not have this problem. Just like
the biggest thing I've seen from Jackie Love is if League of Legends wasn't about winning the game, but it was about damage per minute, I think he'd be making a good argument for himself, because it feels like that's his main focus. And he kind of forgets the fact that, you know, the main goal is actually to kill the enemy nexus sometimes, but he does a lot of damage, you know, so that's great, I guess.
That's true. He does do a lot of damage. And look, there was that interview where he was like, look, I like Cog more because AD carries die all the time at the minute, and I can optimize my damage with his passive. He unironically said that in an interview. So I think that says pretty much everything we need to say about Jackie Love. I still believe that top esports will do decently in playoffs, but honestly, trying to set expectations for this team at this point, I'll leave that to someone else. I will leave that to someone else. I'm going to go into my failure. My failure is one of the teams that didn't make it, and it's not IG, before anyone starts jumping to that conclusion, because I never expected IG to make it. Have you seen IG this year? Come on. Anyone that was expecting this team to make it is delusional. Mine is LGD, because they had such a great start to the year. This was a team that was so exciting to watch. We saw Shadow coming in, and he was just absolutely taking over. And this was like straight after MSI as well, when Rumble was meta, when Diana was meta. It feels like Shadow was just absolutely annihilating people. But it feels like the top side kind of fell apart. They kept on bringing Garvey in. Garvey was getting solo killed basically every single game. And even the bot side, like, I don't know, Kramer and Mark, this is 2 solid years now that I've spent being unconvinced by Kramer and Mark. I continue to be unconvinced by them. I would love to see this roster like rebuilt around Shie and Shadow next year. I think that that's a really solid like building block to work around, but it's difficult when both your side lanes lose every single game. I'm not surprised that they didn't make it with a recent form, but I am disappointed that we don't get to see more of LGD.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the boat of like, hey, let's slap Nani onto that team. Let's get a different bot lane. And like, suddenly you've got like a pretty strong team that kind of goes, hang on, this is kind of all right. Like, so, yeah, I mean.
Look, hey, hang on. On that note, I'm just saying, SMLZ's been looking pretty good recently.
Yeah.
Shousey's been looking pretty good recently. We could figure something out here. Make a pretty strong team out of some teams that aren't really working out. I'm just saying there's a chance there.
But yeah, I think like I've just been completely unconvinced by Kramer. Even before Mark like rejoined the roster, like look at Spring. The dude sucked. Like, I'm just gonna straight out say it. He was mispositioning all the time. His laning phase was atrocious. And like, you can say whatever about Catcher or whatever he was paired with. Like, there was a couple of them that were there, but he just didn't look good. And I think Kramer's just kind of gone past the point where I know this sounds really harsh, but past the point he's relevant. Like, he just doesn't have it anymore.
It feels like as well, a lot of the mistakes he makes in team fights are like game losing. And it's like an AD carry is not always going to be flawless all the time, but like, at a critical moment, if you single-handedly lose the game for your mispositioning, which he has done several times this season, it's just, I'd rather an AD carry who maybe doesn't push as hard, doesn't do as much damage, but doesn't solo lose games for your team.
Do you know what? It's just hit me like a bolt of lightning there. I've got a light bulb has appeared above my head. He's Jackie Love without the DPM. It's the worst of both worlds. Let's move on from just roasting Kramer. Let's talk favorites. Let's move to a more positive side of things. Dagda, we're going to you first again. Who's your favorite from week 8?
So we've kind of touched on them a little bit throughout the conversations we have. My favorite's Ultra Prime. I love these guys. This is such an entertaining team to watch. Like, you talk about SMLZ, not only is he looking pretty good, he's bringing out picks like the Swain, Brand, Twitch we've seen twice now. Like, he's just willing to bring out these really kooky picks, and like sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but like it's still a hell of a lot of fun. And whatever about the game they had today, this is for week 8, so it doesn't count. They beat Top Esports in week 8. Week 9 hasn't happened yet, so I think they looked absolutely phenomenal week 8.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, I don't think there was big expectations of them coming into their series today either. It was just craziness that they beat Top Esports. But I just love the creativity. Like you're saying, these 80 carry picks. I think SMLZ has just gone, look, we're not making it to playoffs anyway, so screw it. I'm just going to play fun champions. Playing Twitch, bringing Kindred out. Kindred ADC, it actually worked. Like, mind blown. I absolutely love it.
That's what I love. It's so clever the way they're playing it, right? They're actively looking at the opponent's draft and going, screw the meta. Like, this is actually a really good pick for this game. And that's what I love, is like they're actually like continuously thinking, hey, is Brand really good here? Is Twitch really good here? And the Kindred one works super well because, hey, they've got a die where we got a lot of like melee short range comp. Let's just pop this Kindred in. It pops the Aphelios, and you can get that Lamb's Respite off at any point in time. It was super clean. I loved it.
And I actually feel like this is one of the shortcomings of the LPL overall in terms of draft this season, is that there hasn't been that much innovation in the bot lane and the AD carry role, because other than Ziggs, which I think globally everyone can agree is like completely broken, there's a lot of other picks that you can put in the bot lane that they haven't really looked to do when the opportunities arose or they've been potentially strong, and only SMLZ has really been the one pushing it. And with things like Syndra, which has recently been buffed, looking to sort of take over a solid bot lane pick, I feel like they're going to need to adapt to this going into playoffs and into Worlds.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. I feel like bottom lane has been pretty stale this year. So, hey, SMLZ, big thumbs up from me on those bot lane picks. Aux, I'm going to kick it back over to you again here because I want to hear what your favorite is from week 8.
Yeah, my favorite, it's kind of like, just because obviously they're out of playoffs now, I want to give some credit to Rogue Warriors. I think that their scoreline doesn't really give a testament to how they performed in their series. I think a lot of times they've made the series close. They haven't been able to close it out, but I think they've made it a challenge, and they've gone up against the stronger rosters and put a good fight in. They've got a lot of fresh faces. We've seen ZDZ and Xiaohao moving up from the LDL, and I think those two in particular deserve praise. I think ZDZ has a lot of sort of games where he's been able to challenge in the top lane, go up against some of the big dogs in the league. I think Xiaohao has also had some early games where he's really set the ball rolling and found momentum for them. I feel like give this team, next year, and we could see them be a really solid roster. I think they've had strong performances. It's just not quite gelled in time, and that's okay. Not every team is going to make playoffs, and having a long-term plan isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that, honestly. I feel like I don't have much to add. I feel like you've just perfectly encapsulated that point and nailed it, so... Fair play, mate. Anything to add, Dagda, or Should we
No, I think as well,
impressed.
like, we were kind of looking at Hysterics as being like the lad who was on the Rogue Warriors hype train, and obviously that got derailed real quickly, but I am kind of on Ox's side as well, where it's like, look, I think this is a nice platform for these guys to jump off of as they start to grow and get to a better spot. And I think, like, again, that's kind of why, like I was saying, Ultra Prime, both these teams have like super strong bases now that, like, coming into 2022, I'm like, hey, I want to see what these guys can actually get up to.
I will say as well, Ice Coke been done dirty by this roster. I need more Ice Coke in my life.
What a name.
That's the final thought on Rogue Warriors for me, at least. And maybe they could actually win some more series, because like you're saying, Ox, getting good games in is not equal to actually winning the series. And they have
Isn't their last one against Top?
They have a 4-loss streak going, which, when you look at the actual games, does not represent how they're playing. But anyway,
they play against JDG. Couldn't you imagine the last game of the split? They beat JDG just as like the cherry on top.
I can believe it, honestly.
Say that the favorite at this point. Like, looking at the teams, I don't know. We'll see how that one goes. I'm going to move on as well, and I'm going to talk about my favorite, which is WE. Very excitingly, on a 6-win streak right now, and I'm quickly squeezing this favorite in before we head into week 9. Because don't look at their schedule, guys. It's like a horror story. They have 2 series remaining. They have to face RNG and Top Esports. It is not going to be pretty. I do believe that WE can beat Top Esports. I think RNG should definitely beat them. But I will say, WE versus RNG is one of the more interesting matches if you're interested in top lane specifically. Because obviously RNG plays super heavily through Xiaohu. I think Breathe has been exceptional this year. I think he is one of the best players, if not the best top laner in the league right now, and also doesn't get the same amount of focus in the top side as Xiaohu does, which is not saying that much. He does get quite a bit of focus. It's just Xiaohu is like...
Gets a lot, yeah.
There's like 4 people in his lane at all times. So I'm really, really curious how that matchup goes. But I do think that WE have shown that they are not a team to just be underestimated. I think a lot of people... especially with the mid lane shenanigans that we saw with Shanks and with Mole, a lot of people lost faith in the middle of the split. I certainly lost faith, but they seem to actually have really come together as a team. They've been on a really big win streak. They've taken down some big names this split as well, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to look like in a best of 5 as well. That's the big thing for me. It's like, I feel like this is a team that they have very clear strengths as a roster now. They have a very clear identity as a roster, and I'm curious what they fall back to when things are targeted out in the draft. I'm thinking about like things like a Silas ban towards Shanks, right? Where do they go from there? And when Elk can't just be sat on an Ezreal all game, like what is the fallback plan? And I'm excited because I feel like they must have been practicing stuff, right? We just haven't really seen it because nobody's ever... I don't know why, but nobody ever bans Silas against Shanks. Nobody ever bans Ezreal against Elk. So I'm excited to see what is ahead for WE. Rant over.
I kind of agree with you though. I think going back to your Breathe point, I think Breathe is one of the best at like utilizing any sort of like small timing window he has in lane. Like I love watching this guy because like you'll see him like he gets a wave pushed in or something like that, and like other top laners were kind of going ward, they'll back up, but like Breathe will like actively go into the enemy jungle. Is like, cool, I've got a chance to steal away a quick red buff here or at camp, and like just create these like little mini advantages that he starts to like accrue over the space of a game. And there's a couple of top laners that do it, but I think Breathe is one of the best at just even like finding time to roam down to mid lane and relieve some of the pressure there. He's just really smart with how he uses his time.
Yeah, I agree. I think just individually, the players on WE are very good at their peak mechanically, right? Breathe and Beishank, obviously. I think Shanks has really proven a lot of people that he can play pretty well in the mid lane and that he's not just this like underwhelming replacement for Teachamar anymore. I feel like he's evolved as a player. The bot lane can be amazing, can be really not amazing, depending on the series. So we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like in play.
I feel like that describes a lot of players in the LPL, honestly.
There's a lot of inconsistency in the LPL, but I feel like there's a lot of limit testing that goes on during the regular season as well. So anyway, that's failures and faves. Let's move on to the next section. And I think you guys at home are going to be excited for this one because on LPL English, we unfortunately don't get a vote for the Rookie of the Split, for the MVP, the All-Pro teams. It's all done on the Chinese side. And so we decided that we would quickly sneak in before the end of the split and throw our votes in and have our own little video for our own little mini rookie and MVP awards show. So, welcome to that. This is our scuffed, a little bit too early rookie, all-pro, and MVP awards show. So, let's start with the rookie category. And we'll go through, we'll each nominate someone and discuss why we think ours is better than the other ones. So, Aux, this time we'll go to you first. Who's your rookie of the split?
So, my rookie of the split is Cream from OMG. I think the big thing for me is, particularly in the current meta, he's been so potent in the early skirmishes. I don't think he's necessarily the best laner, but when it comes to, he just comes alive in those skirmishes when you're fighting, whether it's for Rift Herald, early dragons. I feel like he's really good at knowing the limits of his champion and what he can do in a fight. He'll play aggressive, but he knows when he has to back off, not overstep. And oftentimes, even if his team don't necessarily win the fight, he is going to end up surviving and not giving away, a potential shutdown, a potential gold. I think this player has been such a massive factor for this team. And, they have struggled at times, especially when he's not a champion that's, got that big carry potential. But I think kind of shows the strength of him that he has to be respected and he has to be targeted. Otherwise, he will just start to take over the game.
Yeah. I'll jump in with mine now, Dagda, just because.
All right, go for it.
I'm also on the Cream hype train. Now,
Wait a second.
I just want to quickly add some context here as well. We've all purposely chosen not to talk about Viper and Nuggery, who are technically rookies this year in the LPL, but let's be reasonable here. Multiple years of the LCK. One of them is a bloody world champion. Like, come on. They don't get to be rookies.
So he's rookie of the split, yeah.
I'm also going with Cream. The other players that were like, that I wanted to make an argument for out of pure copium were like Juo and On. Both of whom were rookie supports coming in this year. Both of whom I think improved massively over the course of the last 12 months. On especially, I think, really sucked at the start of the year. And now I actually think he's a very good safe support. Obviously, he's not the perfect support. Obviously, he still makes mistakes. But
you got an MVP today.
Yeah, the difference in who he was at the start of this year versus now is night and day. So shout out to On. But I do think Cream deserves MVP of the split because the term MVP for me, it's really important to actually contextualize what that means, right? Most valuable player. And I think that Cream, every single game he plays has a massive impact on the game. And there are very few players that really fit into that category for me. So I think Cream, as a rookie, is very much my rookie MVP. He's come in, he has completely changed the face of OMG. In my mind, he's the reason that this roster has made it to playoffs for the first time in 4 years. Like, that in of itself is a massive statement. So for me, Cream is the clear rookie of the year.
Well, I'm going to completely mess it all up and tell you that Cream is my rookie. So, I mean, look, we're all based on the same page. Cream's a monster. We all agree. But so I'm going to change my one slightly. Sorry, do you want to say something? Go on, Ox?
No, I was just saying, yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah,
he's doing all right. Like, but so I'm going to change it up a little bit. And I'm going to say the most entertaining rookie of the split. Because I just want to give a shout out to my man, PZX on V5, because this man is hilarious to watch. He is so funny to just the amount of times I've seen this guy like flash over some random wall, running Hex Flash on Xin Zhao just so he can get to the right place at the right time is amazing. I love watching this dude. Is it good? No. Is it creative? Yes. And you cannot take that away from him.
On that note, by the way, I'm just going to also shout out Xiaohao, also a rookie, also came in and completely changed the face of the team. Less successfully than Cream, I'll admit. Rogue Warriors, not finishing on a great scoreline, but I think Xiaohao specifically, considering some of the other players on that roster, mentioning no names, Forge, I think he had an amazing split for himself, and I'm excited to see what rosters he gets onto in the future, because I think he's got a big career ahead of him.
I love the way Lyric isn't here, so you had to fit in the Forge Flame.
Honestly, it's via osmosis. It's like wound its way into my brain. It's all I can think of now. Okay, so we're all in agreement on our rookie of the split. It is going to be awarded to our unofficial rookie of the split is Cream. Congratulations, mate. There is no prize except for last hit kudos. So here's all of your kudos. Let's move on to the All-Pro team. So, we're going to go through. We're not doing... Well, me and Dagda aren't doing 3 All-Pro teams. Aux, though, kind of missed the memo a little bit on this and didn't realize we were doing like a mini version of the awards, and so has done, if I understand it correctly, 3 full All-Pro teams.
I haven't, like, I was fleshing it out. I haven't fully done the 3, but I thought we were doing like 3 for each role, so I was like writing them down and trying to decide. I'm happy just to go with the first, but you know, that made it tricky. Honestly, I was kind of stressing about trying to put 3 in order, so it's actually quite a bit easier just doing the first. So yeah, not gonna complain.
Well, do you want to go first then, mate? Since you've got, I think, more literal written research than the rest of us, I think it's only fair that you give it a crack first.
Sure. So top lane, I put Xiaohu. I do think you have to go with the caveat of the way RNG play around him, but I still think that the manner in which he's performed definitely deserving of this. Really standout performances. I think, you know, RNG's had this massive resurgence, and they are putting resources in this player, and it's clearly paying off. That they had a 2-0 against EDG. They've had really successful performances on the back of him, and I just wouldn't be able to put anyone else in this role. For jungle, I put Wei, and I think, honestly, as much as Xiaohu is the one that they put the resources into, I think Wei is just such a massive factor in RNG's success recently. I think they, as a team, have been really good at playing the map and allocating numbers advantages to plays and being successful. And I think it's massively on the back of Wei in terms of orchestrating those early plays and finding success. I think RNG have been one of the better macro teams in the league since their resurgence, and I think he's a big factor in that. And I think that's why, you know, he would be on my jungle all-pro team. For the mid lane, I would put Dumbi, which honestly, I don't even feel like I need to justify. This guy has been insane. I think it's honestly the split of his life, and that's considering he's already had a world championship title, which is pretty crazy to think. And I fully expect him to, but I really want to see Dumbi at Worlds, because in this form, he is going to be taking names.
Mate, if FPS don't make Worlds,
I mean, it's
there's no way, right?
There's no way. But I'm just excited for it because it is going to be insane. And playoffs as well, I am super hyped for. I think as well, something to mention is the fact that he draws these bans, which in the current meta, where you see so many high priority bans, which are just, you know, things that are just like 100% pick ban almost, it feels. The fact that he draws these bans on things like the Kled that teams just aren't able to play up against, because who has experience playing against Kled mid? It's such a difficult factor that honestly has such a massive advantage in draft that you don't really think about when you get in game, right? It's just something that happens in the draft, but it is hard to prep against. And you know, he may have those other curveball picks that he has up his sleeve. For the bot lane, I'm going to put these two together because I went for EDG's bot lane. I think that they've been super good in the early portion of the split. Viper in particular on the AD carry role, I think, has been a bit of a monster. And really, as much as they had a little bit of a slower season towards the later end, I think their 2v2 in particular between Viper and Maker was just absolutely monstrous. I think these two were such a massive factor in EDG claiming that top spot and retaining it for such a long time. And I think the way they play the lane as well as hypey. There's a lot of supports who I can praise for the way they play the map. And I think as much as that's something to be, like, I'd say Ming is a good example of that. And as much as that's important for support to be able to do, I love just the 2v2 challenges in lane, just the skill checks, just the raw aggression, especially in the current meta where we have picks like Kalista, which are highly prioritized, things like Varus, which have that massive kill pressure at level 6. I love watching this bot lane play. And, you know, Viper Mako definitely solid additions to round up my all-pro team.
Damn, that is a solid list. So I think instead of just taking it in turns to go through our entire lists, because I'd like to be able to have a bit of a back and forth, I'm going to let you go next. Well, I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll, and I was like, you know what, I'm here for it. I'm listening. I'm in. Dagda, you go next on top lane, and then let's round out a top lane discussion, and Aux, feel free to jump in and augment your opinions and debate a little bit with us.
Okay.
And we'll go through the lanes like that so that there's a little bit more back and forth. Because I
makes
realized
more sense.
like partway through that I was like, this is going to be a really fast segment if we don't actually converse about any of these picks. But you were kind of already halfway through, so I thought I'll let him finish. Yeah. Okay, so Dagda, over to you. Top lane. Who's your top lane?
So I'm actually going with Xiaohu as well. I like Ox has kind of discussed this pretty in depth. The only thing I want to add on is I think Xiaohu kind of gets a bit of a bad rep because of how many resources are given to him. But I actually think Xiaohu is the best top laner we have in the LPL, full stop. I don't care about resources, because what we've seen is when RNG were really, really struggling at the start of the split, when Cryin was falling apart, we had Wei who wasn't able to come up and give him those resources, Ming was falling apart in the bot lane as well. Like, those resources weren't being given to Xiaohu, and he was still coming out with major leads. He was still looking like the best player on this team, and I think it speaks volumes as well that we get him now that the team is starting to come together again. Xiaohu is still the mainstay carry, and yes, they are giving him resources, but even before those resources are dedicated, we're still looking at like 7, 8, 10 CS leads come the 10 to 15 minute mark. Like, this guy is taking over in the lanes, and I think that a lot of people are looking at it going, oh, well, it's just RNG playing around him. But like, when RNG literally could not play around him because the rest of the map is on fire, Xiaohu's the only one who had the bucket of water because he just done so well in the top lane.
Yeah. Plus, like, you wouldn't have such a win streak if you were playing around not a great player, right? They are dominating on the back of that.
So, I'm going to come in from a different angle here. And I will say that while I agree Xiaohu was still a good player, while RNG weren't just exclusively playing around him, it's not the greatest of arguments when at that time that you're talking about, they lost like 5 series to 2. Like, all of their 5 lost series were in their first 6 series. And that was when they weren't playing around Xiaohu. Breathe, however, is a player who has had a team that has played around him. He's had a team that hasn't played around him, depending on the series, depending on the mid laner. He's had just as many turbulent issues around mid lane as Xiaohu has this split. Breathe has been an absolute monster. And part of it as well is I'm so excited to see Breathe coming in, like changing his name, I feel like it's almost a rookie split for Breathe in that the roster he was on last year was... I'm just going to say it was kind of pitiful. It was so
It was
tragic.
OMG, enough said.
it was like, and it was a terrible version of OMG. Breathe was the only player on that roster that I could get excited about. I just nearly died. Except for Hacker in a couple of games as well. I think Hacker had some good games last year. But that was pretty much the games where he played around Breathe. I don't know. This guy's just an absolute machine. If he ever gets Camille... If he ever gets Gwen as well, like, the game's already over. As soon as that's locked in, it's just over. There are very few top laners, I think, that can have the same individual impact as him, regardless of how the rest of the map is played. Like, I feel like Xiaohu is also an exceptional player, and I think it's a very difficult decision to make between these two, but I think that Breathe definitely is in his spot in the All-Pro team for me, and I think that the difference in resources gained versus the output these two players have, I think the output is very similar, and Breathe gets significantly less attention from his team. So for me, Breathe is the best top in the league.
I mean, I was just going to add on to that and say, like, because we're looking at, wasn't it 2019 he was on? 2020 when he was on OMG. They finished I'm just looking up now. They finished 12th. They looked terrible. And then in summer they finished. Where did they finish? They were in 14th. They went 4-12. And like, myself and Eric were still talking, and we're like, yeah, Breathe. Well, he wasn't Breathe back at the time, but we're like, he's like the 5th best top laner that we have in LPL on a 14th place team. Like, the dude was absolutely insane. And the fact that now he's coming on to WE and we actually get to see him like growing and getting a team that he can actually play with, you can see how good it is. Yeah, there's a little bit of growing pains, I think, when he joined, but I don't think that was on him. I think that was just on like the team trying to come together. Yeah. And now that they do look really, really good.
I want to add to that point as well, because if you look at placements too, for WE, they had the one good placement when they made a little bit of a playoffs run, which was obviously the roster with Teacher Mara Morgan. Yeah. Teacher Mara Morgan leave the roster. Shanks comes in and Breathe comes in. And the difference that was made to that roster almost instantly when it comes to playoffs placements, when it comes to just, I think also the amount of respect that people gave to the roster. It wasn't just a gimmick way of winning in the same way that the old WE was. As much as I loved that gimmick, it was very much a very one-dimensional team. I feel like he adds a lot of versatility to the team as well. So anyway, I'll stop gushing about Breathe. I think it's clear that I like Breathe.
Really?
Let's talk about the junglers. Now, this time I'm going to change it up. I'm going to go first because you guys are cleverer than me. And that way, I feel like I'm having to make a final say and justify why my opinion as a play-by-play is more valid than these two color casters that have just broken down why they think a player is the best in the league. So I'm going to say it's Tien because I think the FPX have had a weird year, right? Or a weird split because you want to say they've had a turbulent split with the roster changes, with all the stuff with Chris, with Nuggery getting subbed out, and with what happened earlier on in the year around the jungle as well. It was messy at best for FPX, but they've still managed to get the wins. I think Doinb and Tien have been super consistent this split, and I think Tien has been holding the map together in a lot of games for this team. Like, when you've got Nuggery in the top lane, that takes, I think, a lot of mental stress for any jungler to have that kind of player. It's like Nuggery at 369. That category of top laner is like, as a jungler, I wouldn't want to have to deal with that. So I automatically have respect for Tien and Karsa, just in that vein. But I think that Tien is an incredibly intelligent player. I think he's a super versatile player as well. It feels like no matter the meta, he's going to be able to perform. And I think he's also shot a lot of haters up this split. I think certainly in spring, a lot of people were saying that Tien was kind of coming to the end of his career. I think that conversation's out of the window at this point. I think he's looking amazing again. And for me, he's my all-pro jungler.
I mean, I think he's been such a crucial part, especially as he said, like keeping, or at least helping Doinb get these leads, right? Because we look at Doinb and going, hey, look, we kind of need this guy to roam. We need him to get involved in plays. And a lot of these early skirmishes that we're seeing down towards the bottom lane that have like blown open games for FPX, it's usually with Tien. Like Tien has usually been the one that's got involved. He's made some like really clever play that's actually set up the game, or like they've baited in the opponent too far, and then Doinb comes in on Nocturne or something like that and turns it around. So I definitely agree. I think Tien's been a massive impact for this team.
I think as well, you need a lot of foresight as a jungler to facilitate your mid so they're always in a position to move. And, we will praise Doinb. We're going to be doing it for the rest of the season to playoffs. But, putting him in a position where he feels comfortable in that mid lane, in that mid lane, so he can move and can be available in those plays, and making sure you're only moving when that's there, while also kind of holding Nuggery's hand at times to make sure that when he wants to go for a trade or the wave's in a bad spot, he's not just going to get ganked and die. I think he does a lot for his team that kind of ends up a little bit understated compared to some of the other players on his roster. But I respect the decision to put money on team. All
right. So, Dagda, who's your pro jungler, mate?
So, I'm going to take a bit of a different approach because, like, I know that there's a lot of different, like, kind of qualifications for this. There's, like, guys like Beishang who are incredibly smart at pathing. Same when I look at guys like Wei. But I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to a guy that I think doesn't get enough with this. So, I think for me, it's going to be JJ. I think when we saw what happened with Edward Gaming when he was taken out of the equation, the team just fell apart. Yeah. And I think it kind of speaks volumes to how much he actually does control that early stage for EDG, like playing heavily through that mid lane, enabling Scout a massive, massive amount. And I actually want to give a shout out to Clement, who said this at the very start of spring 2021. He was like, this is going to be an insane year for Scout because he finally has a jungler who's going to put pressure towards the mid lane and allow him to play his style. And that's exactly what we've seen. Scout has benefited massively because we always see that JJ's there to support that mid lane. It enables the playstyle of EDG, which is, hey, get Scout into a position he's okay, and then let's put a ton of this pressure down into the bottom side of the map. His objective control is absolutely insane. He like has a really good read on where the opponent jungler is, and often a lot of the times you'll see like a jungler who's against trying to make some sort of play. JJ's already read it. He's in a perfect spot and they'll turn the play around. So I think JJ, especially when we saw what happened when he left EDG, it just shows how much of an impact and how of a kind of an understated jungler he is for a lot of the split.
Wait, so each of us has said a different jungler from the three teams that are pretty universally agreed are going to go to Worlds. That's kind of weirdly nice that all three of them get a shoe in here for the All-Pro. I'm so curious what the All-Pro jungle vote is actually going to be from the Chinese side when it comes to jungle. I am really curious, but I feel
like Tarzan will probably get a mention as well. I feel like it's kind of interesting. Yeah. We didn't, and none of us mentioned Tarzan as so.
The English broadcast has no faith in LNG. Like across all of us in the English broadcast, nobody has any faith in LNG.
So the problem that I have with Tarzan is like, I think he's too selfish. I want to see him sometimes like actually just help his laners, and oftentimes like, oh well, I can actually like go and I can steal away this camp, and yes, it might get him an advantage, but it's not the best thing for the team. And I think that's why like I look at guys like Wei, I look at JJ kind of ahead of him, because I'm like, these guys will know, hey, this is something that will get me ahead, but this is something that will actually win me the game, which is get my team ahead, not myself ahead. And that's where I feel like Tarzan's decision making falls down.
I think it's kind of linked as well to the meta shift that we had with, you know, how they made the jungle changes, where we start the split. There was obviously this focus on these heavy farming junglers. You have things like the Rumble that were really core, and Tarzan. I mean, you look at LNG, they had a really good start to the split, but as the camp timers got changed, we had these more sort of a little bit more gank heavy. It's not like a pure gank meta, but it's gone a bit from very selfish junglers to you need to play a bit more for your team. And I feel like LNG just hasn't quite snapped onto that. I think if that we hadn't had that meta shift, we probably would be talking a lot more about Tarzan now, and LNG probably would have been doing a bit better towards the end of the split.
Yeah, I do think jungle is one of those really interesting roles where it's so important that you understand the whole of the meta. I feel like if you're an AD carry, you just got to know how to last hit. Like most of the AD carry champions are reasonably similar, like with the exceptions of like maybe Kai'Sa, Kalista, but they've been meta enough that if you've been playing for a while, you probably know how to play them right. Same with mid lane. It's not as big of a holistic role, whereas jungle, you have to know absolutely everything that's happening in every single lane. I think it's such an underrated role. I'm going to stop digging myself into this weird hole that I've found myself in. Let's talk about mid lane. Now, I think this is one of the simultaneously hardest and easiest to do, because I think that there are, in my mind, two options, and it's just which school of thought you fall into. So for me, I'm going for Knight. And the reason I'm going for Knight, for anyone that's wondering at home that doesn't watch much LPL, the other option is basically Doomb. And the reason I'm going Knight over Doomb here, because I think that it's really easy to make an argument either way, is that Knight doesn't have a team, whereas Doomb does. Knight is literally 1v9ing every single game. He is the 2021 version of Rookie. When you watch a top esports game, you see Knight's got 3 kills in the first 10 minutes. 2 of them were solo kills. Doesn't even matter who he's against. He's already dominating his lane. He's trying to find ways to get around the map. He presses tab. Bot lane is 0-4 at this point. Top lane is like maybe 2-2 at best. Like it really varies depending on which top laner we even have at this point. It just feels like the map is almost always on fire for Knight, and he somehow makes things happen. And I still I wake up in cold sweats thinking about what if I ever have to play against this player. I remember that Silas play against RA when they try and end the game, and he just literally 1v5s. Like, that kind of thing keeps me up at night. He's just such an unbelievable monster. There are so many great playmaking mids in the meta as well. I am praying. I'm not sure that this team is going to make it to Worlds anymore, because they have really scuffed it at the end of this split, but I am praying that they do, just so I can see Knight in this kind of meta against the best mid laners in the world. Oh my god, I need to see that. I need that in my life.
You know, Joe, I think you're probably going to be okay. I don't think he's going to be showing up in your solo queue games anytime soon.
Well, thanks, Hawks. You were saying you weren't sure if you were going to be on this episode. Yeah, well, good luck. Good luck with future episodes, buddy. Okay, so
I'm just going to add on. I agree with Knight, and the reason is, I like Doomby's an insanely close second for me, but I think if it's a hey, I want someone who's going to 1v9. I mean, the argument is Knight, right? I mean, we've literally seen him 1v9, and I think this wouldn't have happened if we didn't see a really crucial change. And it's going to sound like I'm like downplaying what Knight's doing, but Knight has been really excellent when it comes towards his teleports. Like, almost every game that I've watched, it's like some crazy bot lane play that's happened because Jackie Love and Joe or Jackie Love Yuyanja have been overextended. They're doing something silly. And Knight has like, yes, Jackie Love will die, but Knight comes down and he's like 3 kills straight off the bat. Like we saw it with the Lee Sin in the last series. We've seen it happen when he plays Viegos. We've seen it when he plays Akadis. We've seen it when he plays Silas's. He will like have a really crucial TP where he will give up a wave mid, but knows that it's going to win him the game because he's going to get 2 or 3 kills. And this is something that we didn't see from back in 2020. We didn't even see it from spring 2021. And it's been such a crucial development to his game that is the reason he's able to 1v9. And it's been, I think, something that's kind of been a bit overlooked. And it's made such a massive difference because top esports, I think we've all kind of agreed, like, they wouldn't even be touching playoffs if it wasn't for this guy. Like, he's got 32 solo kills. The guy's a monster. Like, the guy is just destroying everything. It's absolutely insane. And, like, I think for that reason, it has to be Knight. The guy's just taking the entirety of top esports. Every bit of karma and copium that you have is just because of Knight.
I just want to add on the solo kill point. I found it hilarious in that Ultra Prime series that he managed to tie with Marin in solo kills ever for the world record of most solo kills in a split. He's currently tied, goes into game 3. Clearly, somebody told him that he was tied, right? Clearly, because he then locks in Aurelia and he spends the first 10 minutes of the game basically sprinting it, desperately trying to just get a solo kill. Like, it did not seem like any of that was calculated. It seemed like, I need this record right now! And like, Ultra Prime, they just had 3 people mid the entire game. And Knight was like, I'm going to try anyway. Let's see what we can do. It was entertaining. It wasn't good, but it was entertaining. I'll give him that. All right, Aux.
Just
where are you sitting? Oh, sorry, go on, Rob.
On the very last thing on that, I'm just double checking here because I want to make sure I got my numbers right. There it is. For everyone who's talking about it, Knight did it in less games than Marin. Marin did it 44 games for Marin with 31 solo kills. Knight did it with 32 games with 31 solo kills. So
that's a lot less as well. It's not even like slight. It's not even like he had it close. This wasn't even close, man.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people are like, well, he did in LCK. They have less kills per minute. I don't care. He did in less games.
I will say, the one big caveat that I am willing to entertain is that there are 17 teams in the LPL, and let's be honest, there are some mid laners that are slightly easier to solo kill than other mid laners.
Yeah, but the LCK is an easier region, so by default.
Were they then though? You know, were they then?
I'm gonna move this one on a little bit. Aux, who I forget who you said. It was so long ago since you went through your old player. Okay, so anything you want to add to fight Doombee's case since we've just spent the last 10 minutes gushing about Knight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue with the Knight one, and more will come clear later. It's very hard to argue with the sort of Knight discussion, but I think for me, Doombe, again, I expect this player to continue this form into playoffs, to continue this form into Worlds, and he is, as we said before, split of his life, and I fully expect him to be the talking point for both playoffs and Worlds and be a massive factor. Knight, unfortunately, he's going to make playoffs, but I don't think he's going to get to Worlds on the back of that, and I just don't think he has a team around him, which is why I think, as much as his 1v9 performance is insane, I think Doombe is going to be just, unfortunately, by the fact that he has teammates, the more relevant talking point, and I think we've already seen he's just on the form of his life, and as already being a world champion, that's just insane to say.
And
Sorry, go on.
No. After you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I was just going to say, I 100% agree with Aux. The only reason that I really had Knight was like because of the 1v9. Like because it's been so obvious that he is the only reason. But I think it is
sucking his help too.
Yeah. Like it just makes it's like, I don't know, it's like the one mountain in this plain. Like it stands out far more. Whereas I look across at Doombe, he's got other great players around him. So it's not
he's
as
in
obvious,
mountain range.
Yeah, there's like the psychology test. You can't like measure because there's just other things around it that look the same. But anyway, I think for Doombe, I agree massively with Ox's point. I think the fact that Doombe this split has improved as much as he has, added so many new champions to his roster, been able to draw all these bans like Ox already pointed out for like his old picks, and then he's showing up on the new picks like the Lee Sin pentakills and everything is absolutely insane. Like this dude is practicing so damn hard, and it just shows that honestly, it feels like to me like FPX is probably the team that are going to win Worlds this year if it's not RNG. Like it feels like it's a toss up between those two, but if it is FPX, it's off the back of what Doombee's doing.
Yeah, I want to add one thing as well, which kind of falls into that same category that you're talking about. The team that is around you changing the opinion of you as a player. I think Scout deserves an honorable mention in this category because I think if it wasn't for the fact that DoNB and Knight are both literally having the splits of their careers and are just looking so unbelievably cracked that it blows your mind, like, I think Scout would be in this conversation. I think Scout is having an amazing split himself. And I think as well, importantly, Scout has shown that he can be a carry, which in previous splits, I don't feel like Scout has been like the big carry for EDG ever. I feel like he's quite often taken a back seat. I do think that Scout has had a really great split for himself as well.
Also, to lead us nicely into the AD carry point, Scout plays with Viper. Like, by default, you're going to have this, like, comparison between the two. And look, if we're cool to move on, like, my AD carry for all pro team is Viper. Like, the dude has just been absolutely insane. I don't think there's anyone who's going to argue with it. Like, anything at all he picks up, he just looks like he's the best of that champion of all time. It's just
insane. I think that the thing is, in spring, the conversation was like, oh, who's better, Jackie Love or Viper? And like Viper kind of won it out by the end of the tournament, right? And then we come into summer and Jackie Love's like, you know what, Viper? Let me do you a favor. I'm just going to sprint it at least 3 times every single game so you get yourself an MVP. Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah, the competition is not super hot for AD carries in the LPL right now. I think Viper is exceptional. One of the best in the entire world. And I think the competition outside of that is pretty rough. I think Hwanfeng, honestly, might be my second best AD carry. Like, what do you guys think in terms of like second and third? Because I think the conversation of Viper is kind of stale, right? I think everyone just agrees this guy.
I feel like this is one of the things with a lot of these is where it's like you have the sort of cemented top 1 or top 2, which people decide between, and then it's kind of like a mix after that. I feel like for me, the ones that sort of came to mind, I think Elk, Gala, and Able as well. I think all 3 of those have had good splits. I don't think they compete with Viper. I think Gala probably the closest, but I think all 3 of those have had like really impressive performances over the season. So they would kind of be in my toss-up for the next on the line.
I agree with all that. I just want to add in iBoy as well. I know that sounds like a bit of a bad one because we've seen him run all over the place sometimes, but he's actually had a pretty solid split. And I think it's crazy impressive, especially when we look at like the stats for these guys. Like, they don't get any resources really given towards bot lane. Like, Lien kind of plays like, hey, I'm going to control the jungler and let you do your thing. iBoy and Hung have the highest goal difference and the highest ES difference of 15 regardless. They just go in and they win lane. And we've seen it pretty much against everyone that they've gone up against. And I think it is a bit of an understated topic. Like, Viper, I'm not going to take that away from it all. But I think people are kind of sleeping on iBoy and Hung. I think these guys have been a really strong bot lane throughout the split. And because we've, like, I think it is a case of people like, yeah, but he's going to int at some stage. And people are afraid to just say, yeah, it's iBoy's looking good. Because you're like, yes, he is now, but it's coming. And I've been hurt before. And they don't want to admit it.
I just remember the time where he was playing Vayne.
Just really quickly before we move on. Oh, sorry, are you talking about iBoy as well?
I was talking about iBoy, yeah. I just remember the game where they were like tower diving at level 1 and he like auto spaced the tower. So on Vayne, and he got like 4 autos in without taking a single tower hit. Like, it's insane. It's honestly mind blowing, and I think you're completely spot on with bringing him up.
Yeah, also, to counteract that real quick, they did dive level 2 today and just died. It was just like...
I just want to quickly throw in, Hwanfeng just beat him in lane. So, get wrecked. Hwanfeng, best AD carry in the world, except for Viper. Moving on! Before there's any retorts, let's talk about the support role. So, you said Mako Orcs earlier on, I believe. Yep. I'm going to go a different direction. I have a feeling that Dagda's going to agree with me because I know his biases. I'm going to say Ming because I think that Ming is just insane. And I think a huge amount of the success that RNG has had has been down to how well they control the map. And I think a massive portion of that is down to Ming being an amazing player. And I also think that Ming and Gala are severely underrated as a 2v2. Dagda's got his teddy bear out. For any audio listeners right now, Dagda's just gone to the other side of his room to grab his little RNG teddy to stick it on top of his microphone. Yeah, I think that Ming and Gala are also very underrated in terms of the laning phase. I don't think they're the best laners in the entire league, but I don't think that they're a weak point like I used to think with this team. And I think Ming's presence on the map is exceptional.
I agree 100%. Was Ming was my pick. I think that I think Aux brings up a really good point. And honestly, I think if I wasn't so copium for RNG, it probably would be Mako. I think we saw Ming really struggle throughout a lot of this split. But like when Ming is on form, he's just insane. Like his laning phase is really good. His map play is really good. His team fights, like I saw that Alistair play where Gala gets caught, or no, it wasn't Gala. I think it might have been Crying, but one of them got caught out anyway. And he like just bodyguards 5 members of the opposition on Alistair. I was like, you've got 2 spells. I don't know how that works. I was just like, this is insane. I love watching this guy, and like I still stand by my point that like now that we've got RNG back in form, I think Ming is the best support that we have globally. This isn't an LPL thing. I think Ming is the best support we have in the world.
Damn, strong words. So with that rounds out our All-Pro teams. And that means it's time to move the conversation forward to the big one. The MVP, the most valuable player in the LPL. And let's be honest, this is a league that can pay for the value. So let's go through. And I think we each nominate our MVP first, and then let's discuss afterwards. So I'll start. And for reasons that we've already discussed, my MVP this split is Knight. I think the man's amazing. He's 1v9ing. He's an absolute god. I think he's in the best form he's ever been in, and I think his best form is a lot higher than the majority of professional players that get to touch the game. Rob, do you want to go next? Because you're in the middle on my screen.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to move this up slightly higher so there's more Teddy in the picture. As I say, Xiaohu. I think Xiaohu's been absolutely unstoppable. I think as well when you're like talking about as I already mentioned, like RNG at the start of the split had a really, really rough time. Crying was struggling. It meant that Wei was struggling as a result of the pressure that he was getting from his opposition. Xiaohu was left on his own and still came out looking like the best player. And still to think that like this guy was a mid laner that is now swapped to top, and in my mind is the best top laner that we have right now. Like speaks volumes to how good I think Xiaohu is. It doesn't matter if he's on tanks. We've seen him come out with these like crazy Mundo builds. The Lee Sins have been amazing. He's still able to go back towards picks like the Lucian that still get respect banned. Like this guy encapsulates everything and still plays everything incredibly well. So I think Xiaohu has been a massive point for RNG and the reason that they still look as good as they do.
Ox, mate. Who's your
mine
MVP?
Is Knight. And you may remember that on my All-Pro team, I had Doingby in the mid lane. And I still stand by that, but I feel for me, the whole thing of MVP is most valuable player. And I think as much as Doingby, I sang his praises. I think he's going to be a massive factor in playoffs and worlds. Great for FPX. I don't think there's a player who is as valuable to top esports as Knight is. I don't think you can put any mid laner in the entire world in that role and even get close to sort of the performance they've had, because they have looked dire at times if it wasn't for Knight. He is literally carrying them over the line. He's had, as we've talked about endlessly, insane performances in this season, and I think this team would be in a sorry state without him. And they should be offering a lot of money to sort of keep him on the roster for the time being, because I feel like he could really go anywhere at this point.
I don't know what his contract status is. I don't know. Like
it just has a sideways
stuff,
8 infinity symbol.
Yeah, like whoever, whether it's Top Esports or a different organization, the next time he signs a contract, is going to have a whole lot of zeros on it. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Knight. I think that's a very easy argument to make. I think Xiaohu's a good argument to make as well. I will say, poor Viper, he's in the worst role to get MVP. I think. Like it's or maybe support is the worst role, but like what can you do as an AD carry? I think he's doing everything in his power to be as exceptional as he can be. But when Viego exists, when Silas exists, how do you have the same level of impact on the game in the current state of League of Legends? It's not possible.
I think it's a rough meta to be an AD carry, honestly, just in terms of getting the MVP, because, you know, like you said, Viego comes over, kills you, steals your body, and then does
AD carry.
Yeah, you know, so I think it's hard just with the amount of power in other roles, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of honorable mentions. I think Viper definitely is one of them, but you know, Knight just does Knight things.
I love just on that if anyone doesn't know, EDG do vlogs on their YouTube channel, and there's like a clip of Viper like in this game. It's like, this is my game. This is the one I get MVP, and everyone was like doing their damnedest to stop him getting MVP. It was, but that's the thing. It is really hard. I think to go on that as well. I think a lot of like what is done by AD carries in this meta kind of goes a bit unseen, right? Like poke Varus, cool, you hit the arrow. You're like, you're not going to praise him massively for it. So I think a lot of those like plays do get lost in the mix. And especially when you're looking at the flashiness of Viego's, Gwen's with needlework, Silas's who are jumping all over the place. Like, you just don't spot the AD carry in a lot of the times. Mostly because they're dead, but also like, even to make you go play, it's like, hey, you survived. Like, that's the extent of it.
The biggest issue that you've got is that none of your champions came out in Season 11. So how are you ever going to get MVP? Because your teammates
you have to play
played Season 11 champions. Yeah, true.
You know, Action's not going to be there at Worlds. So
all of the OP champions got nerfed really hard. Thank God Action's not at Worlds. I'm not going to get into that rant. We've run out of time, gentlemen. We've run out of time. Any final thoughts you want to say to our audience before we round out the episode? Any thoughts on Week 9, on what's to come? Orcs, we'll go to you first.
It's been a banging season. I'm looking forward to playoffs. I think Week 9 is going to be an interesting one. I think we got some unique matchups, I'll say, that I'm looking forward to seeing. And honestly, if I'm hyped for Rogue Warriors against JDG, I think that one's going to be a bit of a banger. So be sure to tune in and be ready for playoffs. I hope this has hyped you up.
Dagda?
I'm going to self-censor here, and what in the bleep is going on? Like, the coming up to playoffs, like, I don't even know what team is going to come out where. It feels like we've still got FPX and EDG to look forward to as our last game of the split, which is going to be hype as all hell. And even when you get into playoffs, I'm like, any team could beat anyone, realistically. Like, there's a couple of teams I'm looking like FPXs, EDGs, RNGs to push their way up the bracket, but like, I don't see a world where like WE doesn't come out with an East upset. LNG on a really good day can do it. Rare Asim, if they're on form, can do it. Like, there are a lot of teams here that can cause major upsets, and I think this is going to be the closest playoffs we'd had in a long, long time.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I completely agree. It's going to be a very exciting playoffs. I do just want to quickly mention the random Akshan comment I made there. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm big anti-Akshan. Go check my Twitter if you're wondering. I'm not going to try and give context here, but I realized that may have been completely out of left field for random listeners that haven't seen my Akshan rants on Twitter. I'm going to wrap up the episode. Thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate you guys coming and joining me on the show as well. Thank you very much for joining me and giving your opinions on the All-Pro teams. Let us know what you guys think about All-Pro teams on Reddit, on Twitter, in the comments on YouTube as well. Please do let us know. But until next time, we'll catch you later. And until then, we'll see you in Champ Select.